A pile of shame is a collection of games a person has purchased but not played. Mine is substantial. This is PILEDIVER. In most action games, death means repetition. You failed the challenge, so go back a few minutes and try again. Rogue Legacy is an action game, and it's brutally difficult, and you'll be dying often. But here, death doesn't mean repetition. Instead, death means change. Rogue Legacy is an action game about a family of soldiers assaulting a magic castle. Each attempt you make is done with a different family member with different qualities. Some qualities, like a character's class, are pretty traditional. If you're playing as a knight, you'll do better with sword swinging and melee combat, where if you're playing as a mage, you'll be more proficient in casting spells. But your character's class is partnered with smaller traits and quirks that are more human and less common in most games. For example, your character might be colorblind, rendering the game in black and white, or ectomorphic, which makes it easier for enemies to knock you back. They can even have IBS, which doesn't have an impact on the gameplay, but it does make your warriors sporadically fart. These individual attempts on the castle are linked together in a chain of succession. When your character dies, you can choose someone from a short list of random successors to inherit the treasure you found and carry on the adventure. Playing as the successor, you can now spend that treasure on upgrades that will benefit the whole family, such as improvements to health or unlocking new character classes. Since these upgrades can only be purchased after a character has died, each death creates an opportunity to change your family, shifting your new character into a better position for the next attempt on the castle. But the final change brought on by death is in the castle itself. Every time a new warrior approaches the castle, it remixes. The overall layout will always be similar, with a forest to the right and a spooky tower above, but the rooms themselves are rearranged, altered, or gone entirely. The room filled with spikes you once encountered might now be a room full of monsters, or spikes and monsters, or spikes and fire, or spikes and monsters that shoot you with fire. In most games, failure means repeating the same challenge, but Rogue Legacy has too many other ways to kill you next time. These elements of randomized challenge and permanent death are part of the roguelike genre, which Rogue Legacy has a strong foot in, but it's balanced out by its family upgrade system. In most roguelikes, death and failure result in the game radically changing itself and forcing the player to adapt to those changes. Rogue Legacy does this, but also sets itself apart from those games by giving the player authorship over change as well. In choosing how to invest the treasure they've found, the player's control competes with the castle's control. It adds a layer of long-term strategy and planning, but it also introduces long-term risk, threatening the game more than the player. Now, at its outset, Rogue Legacy is a capable action game, with the enemies being the real standout. Some stick to their patrols, but others are aggressive, chasing you down, even passing through walls to pursue you. Their wide-ranging attacks prevent the player from staying too still or feeling too safe. Even when you see rooms repeated, the monster's presence bends the environment, making the space feel always threatening and always fresh. This freshness is vital for the family upgrade system, because any RPG-like progression runs the risk of the game becoming a grind. While most roguelikes rely solely on player improvement to progress, Rogue Legacy balances that with a feeling of empowerment. Success in a pure roguelike may mean studying your enemy's movement patterns and exploiting its weaknesses, which is still a valuable skill here. But if that's difficult for a particular player, they can offset it by building up their character's health to weather more attacks, or maybe their magic to better clear out rooms of enemies at once. The upgrade system lowers the barrier for entry to a notorious genre, but in giving the player so much control, something is lost here as well. The allure of most roguelikes is that, since those games are so brutal, the possibility for success is always there, but it's faint, it's unlikely. Every run feels vital, and every run requires your absolute best. In Rogue Legacy, the castle's challenge remains relatively static from run to run, but the nature of a progression system is that its effects compound over time, which can unbalance the rest of the game. It helps that progress here requires moving to harder areas of the castle, but over time, your remote chances of success start to shift, feeling more like inevitability. Rogue Legacy is at its best when the feeling of growth as a player and the feeling of authorship over your dynasty are kept in balance, both changing the game but without trivializing it. But the game relies heavily on the player to maintain that balance.